What's up, everybody? It's your favorite One Step Closer's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the FansToys Viper, their take on Fireflight for their upcoming Superion, which has been upcoming for quite some time. If you follow my channel and Dummies and Sit Down Saturdays and everything, I've been extremely critical of the entire approach that FansToys has done with their combiners, but now the aerial bots are at least tied with their Stunicons. Don't tell me the next one's coming out in June or July. I only believe tracking numbers. I do not believe you. But I do believe in Nick the Toy Guy, who I bought this from. The link to Nick the Toy Guy's store, where you can email him to order future figures, as well as this one, depending on his stock, will be in the description. Tell him Skully sent you. He sent it to me before he charged me for it, which I appreciate, because he knows time is usually of the essence with me. And unfortunately, this arrived at really bad time for me, so I'm not sure how quickly I was able to actually get this out. But enough about my woes. That's not why you're here. You're here to learn about this figure, and I'm here to try to teach you about it. But in order to do so, I need to first teach you about accessories. However, before we get to accessories, we do have to do our typical FansToys cleanup. So, it's not a whole lot. Split these wings, and then my legs are come completely like this. Yours may as well. Take them, use this armature here, slide it all the way into the back, which will give you clearance to get this flap up and form the legs. The wings come wrapped in paper, just take that off, as does the back wing, and then you should be good to go. First and foremost, he comes with an extra face with a kind of slightly concerned face. It's decoed the same way as the standard face, which we'll look at when we get to the figure. So he comes with a gun. It's painted quite well, almost like this metallic onyx color. And, you know, the magazines are all sculpted nice. The handle's actually sculpted nice. I dig it. And he'll hold it just fine with a tab that inserts into his palm in kind of typical Masterpiece fashion. Now, this gun can also split apart with two different pegs, and now you have two kind of pistols. In terms of him holding them, one still has the handle, so that will plug into his palm just fine. The other one you'd have to hold by the magazine, and that's up to you whether or not you think that's too goofy or not. I actually think there's some character to it. Not that I would use it, but if you were going to use it, I don't think it looks necessarily bad. Because, like, you don't need that gun to have a magazine involved, right? Like, it doesn't need to have that. It's like a space gun. It's a laser gun. It can be whatever you want it to be. Do you know what I mean? But the real reason why the guns are split are so they could be here. They're pegged in underneath using the peg holes that connect them together. So that's a well-utilized approach, in my opinion. And I'll go ahead and show you these landing gear as well, because I think I missed it in alt mode. So they just fold out from the wings. Those are pretty self-explanatory. This one, this piece just folds up, and then you can fold that in and close down, and then vice versa for pulling it out, so to speak. So let's talk about the figure, and we'll get in tight on the head sculpt for Dennis, and I think it's fine. I don't think it's their best. I don't think it's their worst. The white paint on the helmet looks great. The matte paint juxtaposed against it, I think, works as well. And then you have the blue, the flat blue on the eyes, you know, which is fine. I prefer the metallic, but, you know, it has to look just like the cartoon, right? So there they are. So you have a hinge swivel for the head, tight little joint, but you get the full swivel. And the hinge, you get a little bit up and a little bit down. And actually, you could use a little bit more tension on that as well, speaking of littles. Then we have the torso. Now, I will say that, you know what, we'll wait. Let's talk about and start with the arms. Universal joint, not ratcheted out to 90 degrees, and to be fair, it does have good tension on it, but the ratchet would have been nice. Same for the around movement, same situation. Bicep swivel at a cut joint, that works perfectly well. Single hinged elbow, probably because this was designed in the days of FansToys with their limited articulation. They've kind of come a long way since then, but 90 degrees for the elbow, nothing really to write home about there. Wrist swivel, fingers on a base pin knuckle, as well as a secondary hinge for, I would argue, fully articulated hands. We've seen more articulated hands, but I don't think that you need to do any more than this for a figure like this. And then the thumb is at a ball peg at the knuckle, and that's it. No secondary hinge. And that actually, you might actually need some, because you can't do like a real thumbs up. You got to have it look all wonky donkey. So That's perhaps a bit much. There's also a difference between the white here, because this is painted with that pearlescent white that they do that looks very good. But then this obviously has to be white plastic just because of the amount of moving pieces that are up against it. But it is somewhat visually off-putting for a FansToys figure. Same on this side. It is really just because this all is this painted white, right? So it's like all of this, and then it's a stark contrast down there. If it was broken up with different colors and different everything else, it might be one thing. But because it's all one thing, and then one thing is not, it's like one of these things is not like the others, right? Pelvis. So you have these translucent pieces here. They're supposed to be blue. They're going to come with blue pieces that you put in the future or something. They made a mistake. If only they had a bit more time. Do you know what I mean? If they had a bit more time to get this guy out, but it was, you know, they were so rushed to get him out that they had an oversight there. Speaking of an oversight, let me tell you what my biggest issue is with this figure. The waist swivel. So he doesn't really have a waist swivel. He has a hip swivel. It's right there. Not good, buddy. Not good. I'm reluctant to give it any credit whatsoever, to be honest with you. Like I said, if they only had a little bit more time. Do you know what I mean? Okay, let's look at the rest. Oh, not too much though, shall we? All right, so we have universals for hips. These do have ratchets in them forward and back. You get there, which he doesn't get the full Monty, but rarely do you need the leg to go back. The full Monty is just kind of something we say, you know, but rarely do you need that for posing and what have you. And then you do get lateral movement out to about there. So once again, fairly limited, but should get you whatever you want, to be honest. But certainly not the most sophisticated. And it's only ratcheted forward and back. And these legs are heavy, and these hips don't feel as well toleranced on mine as I would prefer. Thigh swivel built around the universal joint. That's well done. No issues there. Single hinge, 90-degree knee bend. Once again, just not the most impressive thing in the world, but kind of the bare minimum. No real sculpt work. You have the knee pads that look fine. They have the vents on them. That's sculpted. The rest is just all flat, right? And ankles. You get a toe tilt up slightly, a toe tilt down, and then a significant rocker. And there he is from the back. Now, I will say that another issue that I kind of have with this guy is I think that the proportions are a little wonky. And it's in the torso, isn't it? Like there's no waist. The pelvis goes straight up to the shoulders. That might be an attempt for them to kind of follow the cartoon model. I do feel like they've made some visual sacrifices to get closer and closer, to the detriment of the look of the figure, in my opinion. But that's all subjective. If you feel the opposite, I get it and understand. But to me, it looks worse for it. Like I'm not taken by this section here. There's nothing really to write home about. It's kind of an unremarkable figure because it's just so plain, isn't it? If we're going to be honest. But a lot of the build of it works well. It's just very limited. It's limited in sculpt and it's limited in articulation. It's not their strongest, you know, but they didn't have a whole lot of time to put it together, so I kind of get that. And it might sound like I'm picking on them, but I am, but I'm picking on them because I've been buying this line, supporting this line. I've been hearing all the wolf tickets and empty promises and so forth, and to deliver something like this that feels half-hearted, you know, at best, it doesn't do much for my feelings regarding the line. Now, we're going to move into transformation here shortly after we get into size comparisons, and if they do that right, they might be able to bring me back, but only time will tell. Let's get into it. Size comparison wise, there he is with the rest of his crew, and I have to admit, this is a big saving grace for this figure for me, because they do look great together. You know, like, I could nitpick this too, because there's like metallic reds that are used more so on all the other three, and now we're doing away with the metallic reds. Like, That really is actually irritating me the more that I look at it. But just sculpt wise, like they blend in with each other. But you see how much simpler he is than the others. Like this is like a time capsule, right? Because these figures came out so long ago. But look how much more, we're going to say it again, plain they have gotten. Look at the legs. You know, look at how much was going on. Look at the chest of Silverbolt. Look at the legs of Air Raid. You know, it's just interesting. It's like interesting as a case study, despite your opinion on the matter. Like, you guys know my opinion. I think I know some of yours. But despite the opinions, the case study is interesting, you have to admit, because you can see the change right before your eyes. Here we go. It can't be any worse than some of the stuff we've looked at recently. Open up this forearm panel. Make sure your hand is in the shape of a fist, which is also, I think, a Marilyn Manson lyric. And then close this up. And then open up that. Accordion the forearm in. Then you can close that and slide up your forearm. We're going to go ahead and do that ×2. So open up, flip her in, close it up, open this accordion in. There's a piece that swings out, so if you're meeting resistance, you're probably banging up against the side of the figure. Go in there, close this, collapse that. Now he looks like a guy who's had an extremely unfortunate set of circumstances. All right, so spin his head, get the arms out of the way, the unfortunate set of circumstances. Flip these out, which will unlock this piece and allow you to flip it up. And once you flipped it up, you can accordion the whole backpack up. And then you have the arms to kind of put away. So in order to do so, if you grab a hold, put your thumb against the 2 screws here, slide the shoulder forward, rotate it in, and then slide the shoulder outward, you'll be able to make the move, right? And then you can slide it back into place. So once again, slide the shoulder forward, rotate it in, slide the shoulder out, rotate it completely. And that sounded like it just grinded paint. Hopefully it didn't. And then put that back in there. And then you can bring this back down and reattach. The backpack. I recommend a spudger. There's 2 hooks that latch in. One is here. You see, this piece comes up and latches in. And it's the same on this side. Latches in. Once those are disconnected, you can rotate the cockpit up and over, fill in the head cavity there, good to go, right? So then you have this piece. You can swing all of this out, but you'll notice that you get stuck here. So what you have to do is pull down on these pieces, which will unlock them, and then you can swing these out to the side. You'll notice these separate pieces here. You can go ahead and just get yourself familiar with them as well and sit those out. And then this whole piece can come back down. And then these pieces can rotate back in. And there's one other thing I'm going to do right now that somebody hit me up about and said they saw it on a review, I think Pake, shout out to Pake, that these hip skirts, which aren't in the instructions, should be flipped upward for jet mode. So there's that. So now we're going to deal with these lower legs. You can flip this crotch piece up. You need to get that out of the way. You can also untab this here. And we need to undo what we did in the beginning to kind of make this a FansToys figure. So we're going to flip this flap down and we're going to pull this flap out. You can tuck the toe in as you will. And you can manipulate these wings as ever you'd like in order to get the maximum amount of clearance. So there's a knee lock here that you need to unlock. And then you kind of need to swing it out. And then swing it. What is it? What do we got to do here? You got to get it to the inside. Where am I going? There we go. Got him around. And then you want to bring this down, but we're going to angle it out to the side a bit. Back in. And then we'll leave all that out for the time being. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. Remember to keep these open too. We're going to do the same thing on this side. So fold in your toe. Unlock your thigh. Flip this flap in. You want to flip this flap down. Disconnect this red section. And I think you can we'll just swing this in here. It'll be all right. Don't worry about it. There. And then now we got a typical, or perhaps old school, typical FansToys situation here. So a number of things have to kind of come together, like the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Aerosmith. So bring these two pieces in and bring these two pieces in. I got that right? All right. And we have to connect our legs while sliding them up. That's why we unlocked our thighs, and capturing this rail. Get that out of the way. There's one. Part of the problem really is just getting it. There's the other. And then we need to capture the tail appropriately. All right. Connect all that. You can lock your thighs back in. And even connect your tail bits. Nice. All right, so let's bring in these pieces. And this piece, we're gonna leave these sections sitting out. We can tab them in as well. And then we're going to bring this section. This section comes down and accordions up halfway until you have it in line with the two lower tabs on this side, or slots rather. Then you have this section, which folds around, tabs in, and then that tabs in. And we'll do that on this side as well. Tabs in, and then that tabs in, and then the wings pretty much operate exactly as you would expect. So just flip them all out. There's tabs and slots. and let's see. Flip them around, tabs and slots. And that's it. I'll clean it up. We'll take a look at it. And there it is. And I had a feeling that this transformation might be the saving grace of this figure, and it kind of is. What a relief. What a nice, fresh breath of fresh air. I've said fresh too many times, I get it. Of just non-nightmare transformations that I've been having to deal with recently. And who would have thought in 1,000 years it would have been FansToys, but more power to them. So, terrific, terrific, terrific transformation. I don't have that in 100%, but you get the idea. Let's talk about it. So the blue yellow paint with the black outline around it, fantastic. That's all pad printed paint, Tampo paint, like fantastic. Looks great there. The white is painted on. Looks good. Yeah, with the tip, so to speak, here with the onyx paint, that looks good. I haven't checked to see if there's a cockpit. There is. More power to them for that. It's a very cool looking jet. Has a little bit more of that realism, a little bit less of that cartoon feel, in kind of the more older school FansToys. Once again, probably somewhat of a sign of the time in which it was designed. So I dig that. The stripe here looks cool, but it does feel like it should go on further. I'm not sure if that's just like an accuracy thing as to why they did that. Pretty clean underneath. You know, it doesn't look as kind of robot-y with wings as a lot of them do. You can adjust these wings as you see fit. I think it's supposed to be angled up, but, you know, it's your toy. You bought it. If you want them straightforward, put them straightforward, dude. Live your best life. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't have any complaints, man, with the alt mode, and I don't have any complaints with the transformation to get there. I think it is fantastic. One of the better ones that I've seen in some time, significant time. And there it is next to Tiger Tracks. Because what's a review without a comparison with Tiger Tracks? What's up, Philly? Final thoughts-wise, we'll start with the negatives. This guy feels antiquated, and that's probably because he was designed so long ago and only tweaked to sort of make the combiner work. But it feels like something that should have come out 5 years ago at minimum. 90-degree elbows, 90-degree knees, a waist swivel that is so limited I don't even think that we should count it. No ankle tilt up, no ankle tilt down, basic shoulders, no ab crunch, like just on and on and on, just stuff that was kind of more in sync with what they were doing 5 years ago, which was still, to be honest, behind the 8-ball even then. In terms of articulation. I'm also not crazy about the proportions, specifically with the torso. It just feels clunky to me. It doesn't feel elegant in the same way that the others feel. The others have had weird stuff going on there also, specifically with the articulation. But this one feels like aesthetically awkward, which I'm not used to. I can nitpick about the hands and the stark contrast in white plastic versus the painted white that does look great. But to me, it's such a nitpick that it's almost not worth mentioning, aside from the fact that I just mentioned it. But you know what I mean? And honestly, I mean, that's about all I got. It's really somewhat, honestly, to be fair, it's really somewhat surprising to me that the robot mode is where all of the kind of complaints come in, and that everything else is kind of knocking it out of the park for me. Moving on to the positives, it is almost fully painted. I wish the red was more of the metallic red so it fit in better with the line. The materials feel great. The plastics feel great. The die-cast feels great. All the stuff that you expect from FansToys feeling-wise is still working at a very high caliber. I like the kind of painted accents on the chest. It adds some much-needed flavor. And the painted accents on the wings of the vehicle just look amazing. And the articulation, like I harped on it and gave it a hard time because it deserves it. But, I mean, it has the minimum basic entry-level standard. FansToys should just be operating at a higher caliber than the rest. But, you know, it has, like, your kind of rookie level. I mean, and most rookies these days are outperforming this in terms of articulation, but it still has that like entry level. So I mean, I think you know where I'm headed. The greatest thing about this is it's straightforward, interesting but not frustrating, not easy but not too complicated, just the right amount of complexity mixed with intuitiveness, mixed with fun, mixed with surprisingly good alt mode, a breath of fresh air that I haven't seen in quite some time. And then the alt mode looks stellar. Like I said, the paint on the wings, all that kind of stuff. And it looks a little bit more realistic, which I've missed in a lot of this stuff recently. Absolute knockout in terms of engineering and in terms of alt mode. So bravo to them for that. But it is ultimately a mixed bag for me. It feels very antiquated in its robot mode, but it feels great getting it anywhere else, so to speak. And I have to admit they look good together as a team. So it's a recommend for me. It's ultimately a recommend for me, but it is not one of my favorite FansToys pieces that I've ever looked at. I can tell you that. But what a transformation. God, what a lucky boy I feel like with the stuff that I've been having to put up with recently. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.